Hi, folks. This is Herb Stevenson. Um, it's the Natural Passages Revealing the Unmarked Doors of Life podcast. The last podcast, I talked about focused attention. Um, it's easy to talk about it and often hard to practice unless you have a good sense of what that is. So today, what I want to talk about briefly is about uh, the process of paying attention to what I call paying attention to what. If we're constantly paying attention, the question is, are we doing it habitually and out of our old habits, which basically means listening to our mind instead of, or our thoughts instead of paying attention to what's in front of us. So from this perspective, I'm going to go through 4 stages. And another thing for those of you who are in business may have heard of Tuckman stages of group development. But I'm going to apply it the internal experience of those stages of development or development of a relationship. And I think it might be insightful for you or something that you can use. So from my perspective, paying attention is the internal perception or perspective of engaging and relating to the world. So natural developmental cycles exist in the formation of any relationship, team, or group, as well as in our individual development process. How we pay attention to ourselves, others, and how we relate to the world is a developmental process. So from the point of view of the perspective of the Tuckman model, in the 1960s, he did a study and he looked for patterns in all businesses about how do they form and grow into a highly functioning team. And he came up with the concepts of forming, storming, norming, and performing. So those are, as I said before, in business will recognize this. What we often don't do is pay attention to it from the perspective of ourselves. And so I think this will be helpful for you. So stage one is forming. And forming is in any relationship and actually in ourselves. Until we become self-aware and start paying attention to what we're paying attention to, we get stuck in a process called me and me and separate from you. So we're completely different. And in that process, the issue is what's happening is seeing me and potentially in you. I'm trying to create safety. I often will focus on talking nice. I will be confluent and even potentially mirror. If somebody does something, I'll mirror it back to them. In other words, we're trying to find how do I engage and connect to you. So I refer to this as I in me. And because that's all I have, I've not learned how to witness myself. I've not learned how to focus my attention beyond that because I'm not sure what to do. So my internal world basically comes down to I'm not necessarily saying what I think. I'm speaking often from what I think you want to hear. I engage predominantly in polite routines and empty phrases, and I basically view as on myself. And as a result, I'm looking for me and you is the way I like to phrase that. In other words, I'm trying to find a resonance or commonality from a presence point of view. I'm trying to find a place where we can be resonant and affect each other in a form of presence. The second stage, storming or differentiating, begins to happen is it's me or you, because at this point, I'm beginning to realize you are totally different to me. Some of your mirroring are things that I probably react to from my imprints from childhood, either parental, school, any type of thing that triggered us. And so we end up storm, and it can be an individual who stays into a highly differentiating place. And as a result, they will either debate or defend. So the idea is I'm trying to find the boundary between us, between you and me. And at this point, it's you or me. So for some people, the differentiation or separation can be, because I'll talk tough, try to keep you awake because I don't know it. And I'm treating you more like an object instead of a person. So I look at you as I and it, and I'm looking for me and it, an object opposite of me, myself. and I'm trying to establish a self-image of myself. And so when this happens, the impact of it is often as a person, um, we can say that this happens developmentally when teenagers happen, or we can call it the terrible twos. It doesn't really matter. We kind of go through these stages on a continuous basis throughout our lifetime. And the question is, can you pay attention to which stage are you in, or in that, as far as that goes, what stage is my relationship in? And as a result, I can begin to realize I can shift that. I can begin to do something. So in this internal world, when I'm storming, my struggle is to find clarity and find my place. So I start without much filters saying what I think of you, or I'm speaking for what I think you need, or how I can be helpful, or how I can look good. So all of these hidden agendas that oftentimes we go through. Oftentimes there are divergent views, which can have a tinge of self-righteousness. I'm right, you're wrong. How dare you? All those types of things. And at this point, in the storming stage, I am my point of view of what is needed separate from you. And this is that differentiating or separating part of trying to create self-identity and figure out what boundaries, who are you and who are me. And often it comes down to it's either or thinking. Stage 3 is me and you, and it begins to it's the Tuckman would call it norming. I call it settling from an individual point of view. And the settling is I'm settling into myself further. And as a result, I can begin to relate to you as separate from me, but able to engage with me. So I begin to form things like a dynamic norming where we're both and we can both exist, we can coexist, we can find commonality. So at this stage, we start having dialogue, a reflective inquiry, which basically means I'm curious about your position, even though it's the opposite of mine. I'm talking with you instead of at you. I'm inclusive and encompassing. And if you borrow from Martin Buber, it's an I am thou. In other words, you are a person, and I'm seeing commonalities in you that allows us to relate and resonate. And I'm accepting myself separate from a public image. I'm beginning to realize I am who I am, and I don't really need to much worry about that. I'm safe. I'm beyond stage 1. I'm beyond stage 2 differentiating. And I'm into a stage of beginning to form resonance. So in doing that, what ends up happening is we are okay as my internal world. And I like to refer to this as, at this point, me has turned upside down and there's a we. So in the first 2 stages, it's all about me. But the last 2 stages, the third and the fourth stage, it's more about we. So my capacity to pay attention becomes around pause, observe, reflect, and choose. I often just shorten it to PRC, pause, reflect, and choose. But I'm speaking from seeing myself as a part of a whole or a process, and I'm empathic with you. Discernment replaces judgments. Instead of moral or self-righteous positions, I'm now discerning. I'm trying to understand your position versus my position, and how do we negotiate something. So it becomes I am me as you are you, which means the beginning of the formation of we. If you're Gestalt trained, you know that I am me and you are you is very similar to what Fritz Perl said, which is I am me and you are you. And the gist of it was, and if we can come together as 2 separate individuals, it's beautiful. So we have different viewpoints, but we replace either or thinking with both and thinking. We can both be right, or we can both have our separate, let's just say, ways of being and supporting the world. So performing is a stage 1, as we're performing as one, is when the complete formation of a we, and this is a bonded relationship. This happens actually in family dynamics over the course of the lifetime. At least we hope. Some people do not get past storming. Some people get to the point of norming and not necessarily gone beyond that. It's not really relevant to say one's good or bad or the other. It's just it has a different flavor and resonance of how people engage each other. So the energy dynamic around this stage is both persons are present, and they both are emergent and generative, which basically means I'm seeing you and we create a holistic approach to each other. So I am able to hold my individuality, but I'm also able to hold us as an entity as well, as whether it's um, a dyad, triad, or a group. So it's very integrative, holistic. And the we is I and now. So I am me now, but in that place of fully present and receptive to that person, the we forms. And so being myself from a place of presence becomes the core of the process. And so when we do that, I like to refer to the emergent generative as 1 + 1 = 3. There's this calmness and emerging process that when you come together, something new always happens, even if it's just a sense of we have formed a complete dyad. So there's two individuals in a dyad, or energetically, it's in a cocoon that is safe for both of us. So we're speaking from you and me become we leading to stillness, collective creativity flow, and collective presence. So the yous become 1 + 1. And so it's you and me uh, plus we. During that time when that happens, we often notice from an energetic point of view, there's energy releases, identity shifts, sense of authenticity. In other words, moments of actual connectivity and intimacy. So there's a deep awareness that we are one and separate at some deep energetic level. And in some venues, they would call this a sense of spiritual kinship. But as a recap of the stages that I want to remind you, it's stages of how I'm paying attention. It's what my internal process is of paying attention. So stage one is creating safety. It's me and you. In other words, I'm trying to find you, but I'm worried more about my self-image, and I'm not really sure about you yet. Stage two is storming. It's me or you, so it's a debate or defend type of process. Often differentiation occurs. Stage four is me and you. We begin to create a dialogue, and I actually begin to witness myself. I'm not reactive. I'm responding by pause, reflect, choose. And then the last stage is we, which is performing in group dynamics, where presence is emergent and generative. And in doing that, what we are capable of doing is both being present to ourselves and the other person in such a way as to create a connection, a resonance. So the reason this is so important, if you look at and remember the stages of what you're paying attention to, is you kind of ask yourself, what am I paying attention to? If I'm having a big reaction or I don't feel safe, I'm probably in stage one. If the reaction continues, it's probably stage two, is storming, where you're reacting to an old memory. I call it Memorex. That was similar to this, or energetically was similar, and the impact of it is you've gone into a defensive mode or storming. Norming is I've relaxed into myself and I'm beginning to trust the other person. And the last one is the we. If I put this into the present dynamics of the world, we're in a storming stage right now. There is a complete debate or defense across the board, talking tough, desires to conquer, separate, and until we can form a new paradigm of a me and you existence, which was the core of democracy, um, we're going to struggle. And there's a lot of predictions out there that says the tensions are sufficient for World War III, which we hope is not how we end up releasing those tensions. Instead of, the goal is, if everybody starts waking up and moves to stage three and says me and you, what would the world look like? We're going to have a better place. Thanks much. I appreciate your time and to listen to this, and wish you well for those who are in business. My book, Coaching, Personal, Transpersonal, and Liminal, is out on the next about 60 days probably. There'll be a new book, a very practical book called bear attention, coaching at the point of contact. It's a very focused, using presence approach to coaching. And until I see you next time, I hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye bye.